Hi, guys. Welcome to our first episode of 2022.
I know, long awaited, but hey, everybody needs a break every now and then.
Yeah, well, I guess I feel like I say this every time we record, but I'm just like really busy all the time. And we were doing a musical, and there were just things happening and competitions. And then I didn't tell you, but I had COVID. Like when I texted you that I was sick, but I tested negative for COVID. And then I was like, okay, so I'm negative, but then I was like really sick over the weekend. And then I was like, well, I need to go test Monday just to be sure. So I tested Thursday negative, but then I was homesick Friday. I was sick on the weekend. Then Monday I went to go test and I came out positive.
Oh
Like,
my gosh. Thank you.
and so, but luckily, I was only sick for like really, really sick for a couple of days, and then I just had like congestion for
Yeah.
a big part after that, and then I couldn't go to work, obviously. Um, so I've been home all week long.
Oh my gosh. Well, I'm
I know.
glad that you're like recovered and you're feeling better. This freaking new transformer like variant. I
Is
hate the name because it sounds like a transformer. It's it's gosh, I mean, it just came out of
yeah,
nowhere.
it's crazy.
Like I think my mom got it when we were in Universal, but it came and went so quick, and like
Yeah.
none of the rest of my family felt sick, that we didn't even know for sure. But the way she was, I was like, I feel like you've got a mild case of it.
Yeah, and then I tested negative today, so thankfully
Oh,
I don't
that's
have
good.
it. Carlos has it still, because he was sick too, but he didn't test till, let me see, I think he tested Friday or something like that. Uh, no, he tested Tuesday because I tested positive Monday, and they were like, no, like you need to go home, like you can't be here if your wife is positive. So they sent him home, and he tested Tuesday, and it came out positive too. But he's still
Oh,
positive now, so we
oh my
are.
god.
I know. Any updates in the Twilight world? I'm trying to think.
You know, I don't even know because I kind of have also been on a social media like break. I haven't been on, well, I think I went on TikTok a couple times just to like respond to like my messages from like Cherish and Jazz, because we send each other videos, but I haven't
Yeah.
posted and I haven't really kept up on Instagram, so I don't know what's happened recently. I
I'm
just know
trying.
FTF sold out on tickets.
Yeah, so that's a huge update. So January 1st, VIT tickets dropped at 10 a.m. Forks time or Pacific Standard, right? Pacific Standard? There, I think so.
Yeah,
And
it was like
so
midnight Eastern.
no, well no, actually it was 10 a.m. Pacific, so it was noon
Uh,
Central time, and then it dropped at 1 Eastern time.
oh,
It was
oh
really odd,
yeah,
yeah. And
that's
so
all.
so all the tickets, not only just VIT, but all the tickets, like the tickets for the parties
Yeah.
dropped and all that stuff. But VIT, I think that first day, if I'm not mistaken, I think I heard from someone that they only had like 30 tickets left after they dropped after that first day.
I don't
But
know how the like site didn't crash.
the site didn't crash at all. So they must have a really good server or something.
Well, the movie theaters need to step up their game because Spider-Man No Way Home ticket drop night crashed and I was up for 3 hours. So Forks is doing something right.
Yeah, their website. And boy, to be fair, I don't know like if everyone was rushing at 10 a.m. to go buy the tickets. It was I
True.
think
Yeah.
I know like me and a couple people got on Zoom so we could buy at the same time because they have like a new rule this year that
With the meet and
uh
greet.
with the meet and greet. So instead of like you going and picking up your ticket at like say you're the first person there, you would be in group one, which is like 1 through 50. um and then that you would be like one of the first ones to go to the meet and greet. But then this year they're doing it based on when your ticket is paid off.
Which how it should always have been, because my God, I mean, I was one of the first people to pay off my ticket last year, yet I got there, late and was one of the second to last groups to go. But
Yeah,
at least they listened to the feedback
yeah.
we gave them.
Cherish and I were the last group to go.
I know,
It was
but
crazy.
and I'm surprised that Cherish was able to get Peter to hold up the cone for a picture.
I
Because when I
know.
went up, because by the time I got up to him, I was too nervous and I thought, he's so tired. He does not want to talk to me. I'm going to make it quick.
Yeah, well, he was so him and Eric were really troopers for sitting there and like
Yeah.
talking to people and like not just being like, okay, get here. What do you want me to sign? Let's take a picture.
Yeah.
So,
And I heard
yeah,
Eric's going back.
yeah, Eric goes every year,
Yeah.
but
Well,
he's
this is
gonna
his
go
movie,
bestie
so he's
Eric.
got to be there.
Yeah, exactly. He has like this is his time. I'm hoping his girlfriend goes again. She's such a fun time. I love her.
Yeah.
She's great. But
Oh,
but yeah, so VIP tickets are sold out. I think they only sold 350 tickets or
see, the thing
300.
it's like I was hoping to maybe get the Phantom Party, but I'm not gonna know if I can even really go to Forks until like probably March, April. So I mean, I was hoping, there would still be the Phantom Party tickets, but then I went on and saw they sold out and they were only selling like 25, 50 tickets of that. And I
Oh,
was all
are
like,
they did sell out of those?
the gala and the Phantom Party both sold out, and they only sold 50, like I think 25 to 50 of those individual tickets,
Oh
because they had
wow.
so many VITs. And I'm like, so I mean, unless they do what they did last year, because I remember last year in August when they announced Peter was going, they had upgrades to VIT. So, and like
Mm,
they ended up dropping more. So I'm hoping by March, April, if I do save up enough, because I'm currently saving money to hopefully
yeah.
go. I don't know for sure, but I hope I can at least get a Phantom Party ticket.
Yeah, I think there's a really high demand for it this year, possibly. So I
Yeah.
feel like they might add more. I don't know 100% sure if they are. I hope that they would because at least for the parties, because that's really like the only that and the meet and greet are the only like non-free things that you can do. There's a
Oh,
lot of
and the
free
dinner.
and the dinners. There's
The
the
dinner, the
there's
luncheon, the breakfast. I mean,
yeah.
it's really
I mean,
it's like the events at the school and then the bazaar and any of the public ones are free.
yeah, but those are also fun to go to, you
Yeah.
know. So I think that either way, you would have a great time. But I hope that they would add more party tickets at least. That way, you could at least go to those because those are going to be fun. I think the themes this year, the gala, that's called the Renaissance Fair
For the
Gala
Phantom Party.
for the
Yeah.
fandom party. And so like I mean last year for the fandom party was real casual, but I was like this year we have to go all out like Renaissance outfits.
I was like, I'm gonna dress up as a knight. Like, are you kidding me?
Literally. And then the gala party is red carpet, which is just like
I don't know how I feel
iconic.
about that, simply because my junior year prom was red carpet themed, and I'm
Oh.
all like, oh, I don't know about that, but I get it. I was
Yeah.
like,
It's cute. I really like it because
yeah.
I know that was one thing that last year I was like, I wonder what they're gonna do for next year because I for last year it was the white party,
Nightmare White.
which was super cool, you know. And so I was like, I wonder what they're gonna do. I wonder if it's gonna be something like Volturi themed, but no, it's red carpet, which is perfectly okay with me.
Oh, that would have been so good if they did like a Volturi, ball theme.
Yeah.
Oh, but didn't they do that like a couple years ago?
I don't know.
Mm.
I know they've done a prom. I don't know what other themes they've done, but I know they've done like prom. That's really the only one that I know of though.
Yeah. We got prom. They did the white gala for the dream, and yeah, man. So it's gonna be cute. I hope. I mean, with $450 VIT tickets, they better have enough money for some nice decorations.
Yeah, I feel like they didn't do that bad last year, but I think hopefully they'll up their game a little bit. Um, I
I
thought
love
that
the photo booths.
yeah, the photo booth was fun. I didn't take one, but I saw everyone having a great time with them. But like I thought that they
We,
had like that really pretty arch for the gala. That was
yeah.
really cute.
If I do go and I'm able to get a ticket, we'll have to do the photo booth together.
Mm-hmm. Like, they're just like so. I'm so excited for this year. For this year's just gonna be crazy. I feel like it started off crazy, but I feel like it's just gonna be crazier and crazier. In June, I'm gonna go stay at the Bella Swan house.
That's gonna be fun.
So that should be great.
For those of you listening along, grab your books if you have it. We are going to be, I know
Oh
we
yeah,
didn't
I
say
don't
it
even think we
first.
explained. So
Yeah.
guys, wow. Yeah, so I always said, I think since we started the podcast, like I need to read Bree Tanner. I need to read it. I didn't have it, and then I was gifted it for Christmas last year, I think maybe. And then I still never read it. But only because I just like, oh my God, things are just so busy around here in this house. And so I didn't have time. But what a perfect way to start the new year with like a new series,
Yeah.
something new. My reactions and stuff like that will all be fresh, and real. And so we're gonna read Bree Tanner.
And you'll like understand certain things at the end because, it's like we get another point of view of the world of Twilight. Bree
Yeah.
is a minor character, but she plays a very significant role, I feel, in Eclipse because even though she dies, she kind of is like the pawn that shows that the Volturi mean business. Like they wouldn't
Yeah.
even let her like have a peaceful life
Mm-hmm.
with the Cullens.
And I feel like everything that I know about Bree Tanner, I know from you. So I think it's gonna be like connecting the dots a little bit.
Yeah.
So that'll
Okay.
be good to kind of connect the dots. So yeah, I think we're gonna read up to page 50 today. I think, unless we find a good stopping point before that. But I think I was like kind of looking ahead. I think 50 seems like a good stopping point. It's a very short book, obviously. So
It's like less than 200 pages, I think.
yeah, let's check that really quickly. And she adds like a little snippet of the host at the end. It's a
Oh
hundred.
yeah, because it was around the same time that Stephanie was writing the host. Because she wrote this during like them filming Eclipse.
Yeah.
So
Okay. So let me let me put my phone on do not disturb really quickly. Okay. Do you want to start it or do you want me to start it?
you can start it.
Okay. The newspaper headline glared at me from a little metal vending machine. Seattle under siege. Death toll rises again. I hadn't seen this one yet. Some paperboy must have restocked the machine. Lucky for him, he was nowhere around. Great. Riley was going to blow a gasket. I would make sure I wasn't within reach when he saw this paper. Let him rip somebody else's arm off. I stood in the shadow behind the corner of a shabby three-story building, trying to be inconspicuous while I waited for someone to make a decision. Not wanting to meet anyone's eyes, I stared at the wall beside me instead. The ground floor of the building housed a record shop that had long since closed. The windows, lost to weather or street violence, were filled in with plywood. Over the top were apartments, empty. I guess since the normal sounds of sleeping humans were absent, I wasn't surprised. The place looked like it would collapse in a stiff wind. The buildings on the other side of the dark, narrow street were just as wrecked. The normal scene for a night out on the town. I didn't want to speak up and draw attention, but I wish somebody would decide something. I was really thirsty and I didn't care much whether we went right or left or over the roof. I just wanted to find some unlucky people who wouldn't even have enough time to think wrong place, wrong time. Unfortunately, tonight, Riley sent me out with two of the most useless vampires in existence. Riley never seemed to care who he sent out in hunting groups, or particularly bugged when sending out the wrong people together meant fewer people coming home. Tonight, I was stuck with Kevin and some blonde kid whose name I didn't know. They both belonged to Raul's gang, so I went without saying that they were stupid and dangerous, but right now, mostly stupid. Instead of picking a direction for our hunt, suddenly they were in the middle of an argument over whose favorite superhero would be a better hunter. The nameless blonde was demonstrating his case for Spider Man now, skittering up the brick wall of the alley while humming the cartoon theme song. I sighed in frustration. Were we ever going to hunt? A little flicker of movement to my left caught my eye. It was the other one. Riley had sent out in this hunting group, Diego. I didn't know much about him, just that he was older than most of the others. Riley's right hand man was the word. That didn't make me like him any more than the other morons. Diego was looking at me. He must have heard the sigh. I looked away. Keep your head down and your mouth shut. That was the way to stay alive in Riley's crowd. Spider-Man is such a whiny loser, Kevin called up to the blonde kid. I'll show you how a real superhero hunts. He grinned wide, his teeth flashed in the glare of a street light. Kevin jumped into the middle of the street just as the lights from a car swung around to illuminate the cracked pavement with a blue-white gleam. He flexed his arm back, then pulled them slowly together like a pro wrestler showing off. The car came on, probably expecting him to get the hell out of the way, like a normal person would, like he should. Hulk mad, Kevin bellowed. Hulk smash. He leaped forward to meet the car before it could brake, grabbed its front bumper, and flipped it over his head so that it struck the pavement upside down with a squeal of bending metal and shattering glass. Inside, a woman started screaming. Oh man, Diego said, shaking his head. He was pretty with dark, dense, curly hair, big white eyes, and really full lips. But then, who wasn't pretty? Even Kevin and the rest of Rose morons were pretty. Kevin, we're supposed to be laying low, Riley said. Riley said, Kevin mimicked in a harsh soprano. Get a spine, Diego. Riley's not here. Kevin sprang over the upside down Honda and punched out the driver's side window, which had somehow stayed intact up to that point. He fished through the shattered glass and the deflating airbag for the driver. I turned my back and held my breath, trying my hardest to hold on to the ability to think. I couldn't watch Kevin feed. I was too thirsty for that, and I really didn't want to pick a fight with him, so I did not need to be on Rose's hit list. The blonde kid didn't have the same issues. He pushed off the bricks overhead and landed lightly behind me. I heard him and Kevin snarling at each other, and then a wet, tearing sound as the woman's screams cut off. Probably them ripping her in half. I tried not to think about it, but I could feel the heat and hear the dripping behind me, and it made my throat burn so bad even though I wasn't breathing. I'm out of here, I heard Diego mutter. He ducked into a crevice behind the dark buildings, and I followed right on his heels. If I didn't get away from here fast, I'd be squabbling with Rose goons over a body that couldn't have had much blood left in it by now, anyways. And then maybe I'd be the one who didn't come home. Ugh, but my throat burned. I clamped my teeth together and keep from screaming in pain. Diego darted through a trash-filled side alley, and when we hit the dead end up the wall, I dug my fingers into the crevices between the bricks and hauled myself up after him. On the rooftop, Diego took off, leaping lightly across the other roofs towards the light shimmering off the sound. I stayed close. I was younger than he was, and therefore stronger. It was a good thing we younger ones were the strongest, or we wouldn't have lived through our first week in Riley's house. I could have passed him easy, but I wanted to see where he was going, and I didn't want to have him behind me. The Eagles didn't stop for miles. We were almost to the industrial docks. I could hear him muttering under his breath. Idiots, like Riley wouldn't give us instructions for a good reason. Self preservation, for example, is an ounce of common sense, so much to ask for. Hey, I called. Are we going to hunt anytime soon? My throat's on fire. It's funny as I'm reading this, since like I was like in Seattle, I'm trying to think of like the area that they're in. And it was so funny
Yeah.
because when we went to Seattle, when we got there super well after we picked up Crystal, we were like, let's go find something to eat. So we're looking for Jack in the Box. And I got lost in the industrial part of Seattle.
Oh no.
So it's funny that I'm like thinking like where are they? um okay, let's continue. Um Hey, I called. Are we going to hunt anytime soon? My throat's on fire here. Diego landed on the edge of a wide factory roof and spun around. I jumped back a few yards on my guard, but he didn't make an aggressive move towards me. Yeah, he said. I just wanted some distance between me and the lunatics. He smiled all friendly, and I stared at him. This Diego guy wasn't like the others. He was kind of calm, I guess was the word. Normal. Not normal now, but normal before. His eyes were a darker red than mine. He must have been around for a while, like I'd heard. From the street below came the sounds of nighttime in the slummier parts of Seattle. A few cars, music with heavy bass, a couple of people walking with nervous fast steps, some drunk bum singing off key in the distance. You're Bree, right? Eo asked. One of the newbies? I didn't like that. Newbie, whatever. Yeah, I'm Bree. But I didn't come in with the last group. I'm almost 3 months old. Pretty slick for a 3 monther, he said. Not many would have been able to leave the scene of an accident like that. That's I was also gonna comment on that because she seems to have super self control if she can just walk away from
Yeah.
something gruesome like that. So that's does Brie have a power?
They never said. From what I know, the only one who had a gift was Fred, who you're gonna
Hmm.
meet. I don't think they never said Bree did, but maybe she had some like enhanced self control.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, because I was like, I mean, if they're ripping her body in half and there's blood everywhere, you would imagine that a
She would have been
new
like, boom.
I know. Jasper wouldn't have lasted in that situation. Jasper would have been,
Jasper was
not a
all like,
goner.
oh, blood.
I know. Um, okay. Pretty slick for a 3 monther, he said. Not many would have been able to leave from a scene of the accident like that. He said like a compliment, like he was really impressed. Didn't want to mix it up with Rose freaks. He nodded. Amen, sister. Their kind ain't nothing but bad news. Weird. Diego was weird. How he sounded like a person having a regular old conversation. No hostility, no suspicion. Like he wasn't thinking about how easy or hard it might be to kill me right now. He was just talking to me. How long have you been with Riley? I asked curiously. Going on 11 months now. Wow, that's older than Rome. Diego rolled his eyes and spit venom over the edge of the building. Yeah, I remember when Riley brought that trash in. Things just kept getting worse after that. So Riley was going like this was going on for a long time then. I feel
Uh,
like in Eclipse you never really gather like how long it's really been going on before, but Victoria was
yeah,
working that.
yeah. It seemed like it was just within a couple days or a week, and especially like with the
Yeah.
movie, and like the movie doesn't indicate that. I think, well, the movie like brushes over it because when Bella, sees the missing poster on the table with Charlie, Charlie was all like, "Oh, this kid, he went missing about a year ago." So they
Yeah.
lightly brush over it, but they don't like you don't realize, oh,
At that point in Bella's life, a year ago would have been in Twilight. No? Like at the end
yeah,
of
it was like
Twilight, beginning of
around,
New Moon.
yeah, yeah. So it's like
So that's
the moment Bella goes, um, I think it was, yeah, right after James died, Victoria turned Riley.
that is wild to even think about it in a timeline like that. Wow.
She got to work right away.
She got to work. She was wasting no time. Okay. I was quiet for a moment, wondering if he thought everyone younger than himself was trash. Not that I cared. I didn't care what anybody thought anymore. Didn't have to. Like Riley said, I was a god now. Stronger, faster, better. No one else counted. Then Diego whistled low under his breath. There we go. Just take a little brains and patience. He pointed down and across the street. Half hidden around the edge of a purple black alley, a man was cussing at a woman and slapping her while another woman watched silently. From their clothes, I guessed that it was a pimp and two of his employees. This wow, Stephanie. A pimp and two of his employees. She could have just said a pimp and what they are, I guess. But
Yeah.
really interesting
We
word.
all know who they are, Stephanie. You don't need to censor.
Okay, jeez. This is what Riley had told us to do: hunt the dregs, take the humans that no one was going to miss. the ones who weren't headed home to a waiting family, the ones who wouldn't be reported missing. It was the same
That's
way he.
insane. I just gotta because prostitutes are like most victimized by crime, so it's
Mhm.
like Stephanie, you're foul for that.
Yeah, and imagine this group of people who are like terrible people and like having to be someone as young as Bree and like living with them. I
Yeah.
wonder what made does it ever say what made him turn Bree? Like was she like running these streets and like being a bad
Um,
kid?
Bree had escaped. Bree had fled from home because her dad was abusive. So, and she took a one-way train ticket to Seattle and was on the streets. So
Mm,
Riley, I don't know if it maybe was a sense of wanting to save her or that, but it's like he caught her trying to find food in a dumpster and like lured her by saying, "Hey kid, I can get you a burger." And that's when he bit her.
yeah.
Well, not bit her,
Well,
he took her to Victoria.
jeez. Okay. Well, that sucks. This does not seem like a good group of people.
Yeah.
It was the same way he chose us, Niels and Gods, both coming from the dregs. Unlike some of the others, I still did what Riley told me to do. Not because I liked him, that feeling was long gone. It was because he told us what he told us sounded right. How did it make sense to call attention to the fact that a bunch of new vampires were claiming Seattle as their hunting ground? How was that going to help us? I didn't even believe in vampires before I was one. So if the rest of the world didn't believe in vampires, then the rest of the vampires must be hunting smart, the way Riley said to do it. They probably had a good reason. And like Diego said, hunting smart just took a little brains and patience. Of course, we all slipped up a lot, and Riley would read the papers and groan and yell at us and break stuff, like Raul's favorite video game system. Then
How did he
Raul
have
would
one?
get mad. Huh?
How did he have one? So I
I
want to
don't
know.
know. That seems like a very like odd thing for Stephanie to add in there. Like
Yeah. I was like, you're kind of making them sound like they're
human.
domesticated and
Yeah.
I'm like, sweetie.
Then Raul would get mad and take somebody else apart and burn him up. Then Riley would be pissed off and he'd do another search to confiscate all the lighters and matches. A few rounds of this, and then Riley would bring home another handful of vampirized drag kids to replace the ones he'd lost. It was an endless cycle. Diego inhaled through his nose a big long pull, and I watched his body change. He crouched on the roof, one hand gripping the edge. All that strange friendliness disappeared, and he was a hunter. That was something I recognized, something I was comfortable with because I understood it. I turned off my brain. It was time to hunt. I took a deep breath, drawing in the scent of the blood inside the humans below. They weren't the only humans around, but they were the closest. Who you were going to hunt was the kind of decision you had to make before you scented your prey. It was too late now to choose anything. Diego dropped from the roof edge, out of sight. The sound of his landing was too low to catch the attention of the crying prostitute, the zoned out prostitute, or the angry pimp. A low growl ripped from beneath my teeth. Mine. The blood was mine. The fire in my throat flared, and I couldn't think of anything else. I flipped myself off the roof, spinning across the street so that I landed right next to the crying blonde. I could feel Diego close behind me, so I growled, a warning at him, while I caught the surprised girl by the hair. I yanked her to the alley wall, putting my back against it, defensive just in case. Then I forgot all about Diego because I could feel the heat under her skin, hear the sound of her pulse thudding close to the surface. She opened her mouth to scream, but my teeth crushed her windpipe before a sound could come out. There was just a gurgle of air and blood in her lungs, and the low moans I could not control. The blood was warm and sweet. It quenched the fire in my throat, calmed the nagging, itching emptiness in my stomach. I sucked and gulped, only vaguely aware of anything else. I heard the same noise from Diego. He had the man. The other woman was unconscious on the ground. Neither had made any noise. Diego was good. The problem with humans was that they just never had enough blood in them. It seemed like only seconds later the girl ran dry. I routed her limp body in frustration. Already my throat was beginning to burn again. I threw the spent body to the ground and crouched against the wall, wondering if I could grab the unconscious girl and make off with her before Diego could catch up to me. Diego was already finished with the man, who looked at me with an expression that I could only describe as sympathetic. but I could have been dead wrong. I couldn't remember anyone giving me sympathy before, so I wasn't positive what it looked like. Go for it, he told me, nodding to the limp girl on the ground. Are you kidding me? Nah, I'm good for now. We've got time to hunt more some more tonight. Watching him carefully for some sign of a trick, I darted forward and snagged the girl. Diego made no move to stop me. He turned away slightly and looked up at the black sky. I sank my teeth into her neck, keeping my eyes on him. This one was even better than the last. Her blood was entirely clean. The blonde girl's blood had the bitter aftertaste that came with drugs. I was so used to that, I'd barely noticed. It was rare for me to get really clean blood because I followed the dregs rule. Diego seemed to follow the rule too. He must have smelled what he was giving up. Why had he done it? Hmm.
Yeah. That was the part where my thing ended, so now I need to find it on the other thing. Let me
Oh.
see. Is that see
Oh,
this one
okay. That
has
was page 12.
that was page 12? Okay. Let me see. Did it say why had he done it?
Yeah, it does.
Okay, so that's where it ends as chapter one. That would be like where chapter one ends. Because the way this has it is that it's it has it like that. Okay,
Okay.
chapter two. Now like the next sentence is kind of like where this list says chapter two, I guess.
Okay. So it's really interesting to me that the other girl was clean, but she was also a prostitute.
Yeah,
And the
either the
other two had drugs and she didn't.
yeah, either she hadn't used them yet, maybe, or they ran out, or maybe or I don't know.
I feel like that, I don't know, I maybe I'm just like looking into it too much, but I feel like that's something to like kind of because Diego didn't drink from her. So like is it a setup? Like was he like because if their rule is to only like go with people who are like low lives or I don't know what you want to call it, then maybe that I don't know.
Yeah. Hmm. I forgot that like because I don't know if in the original saga it even mentions if like when the vampires like drink someone who has like drugs or alcohol in their system that it leaves a bitter aftertaste. I don't know if Edward ever mentioned that.
Yeah, which I think we like discussed, right? Because obviously they have taste, so like if they're doing drugs, then obviously that would affect their taste. So I guess that makes sense. I wonder if that would say something to someone who has like some kind of like blood thickness or like do the different like types of blood taste differently or like
Yeah.
things like that. Hmm. Okay, well let's continue. When the second body was empty, my throat felt better. There was a lot of blood in my system. I probably wouldn't really burn for a few days. Diego was still waiting, whistling quietly through his teeth. When I let the body fall to the ground with a thud, he turned back to me and smiled. Thanks, I said. He nodded. You look like you needed it more than me. I remember how hard it is in the beginning. Does it get easier? He shrugged. In some ways. We looked at each other for a second. Why don't we dump these bodies in the sound? Oh, yeah, he suggested. I bent down, grabbed the dead blonde, and slung her limp body over my shoulder. I was about to get the other one, but Diego was there before me, the pimp already on his back. I got it, he said. I followed him up the alley wall, and then we swung across the girders under the freeway. The lights from the cars below didn't touch us. I thought how stupid people were, how oblivious, and I was glad I wasn't one of the clueless. Hidden in the darkness, we made our way to an empty dock close to the night. Diego didn't hesitate at the end of the concrete. He just jumped right over the edge with his bulky burden and disappeared into the water. I slid in after him. He swam as sleek and quick as a shark, shooting deeper and farther out into the black sound. He stopped suddenly when he found what he was looking for, a huge slime covered boulder on the ocean floor, sea stars and garbage clinging to its sides. We had to be more than 100 feet deep. To a human, it would have seemed pitch black there. Here. Diego let go of his bodies. They swayed slowly in the current beside him while he shoved his hand into the mucky sand at the base of the rock. After a few seconds, he found a hold and ripped the boulder up from its resting spot. The weight of it drove him waist deep into the dark sea floor. He looked up and nodded to me. I swam down to him, hooking his bodies with one hand on my way. I shoved the blonde into the black hole under the rock, then pushed the second girl and the pimp in after her. I kicked them lightly to make sure they were in, and then got out of the way. Diego let the boulder fall. It wobbled a little, adjusting to the newly uneven foundation. He kicked his way out of the muck, swam to the top of the boulder, and pushed it down, grinding the obstructions flat underneath. He swam back a few yards to view his work. Perfect, I mouthed. These three bodies would never resurface. Riley would never hear a story about them on the news. He grinned, and so it's a rock under. It's a huge boulder under the in the sea. I'm assuming, and there's like a hole underneath.
Oh yeah, it's kind of like a cave, I think.
Oh, okay.
Because I remember, I think that's where, um, I think that's where another scene takes place, and I think they kind of make it sound like it's almost like a underground cave.
Okay, that's the work that they go through to just hide the bodies. That's
Yeah.
wild. Okay. He grinned and held up his hand. It took me a minute to understand that he was looking for a high five. Hesitantly, I swam forward, tapped my palm to his, then kicked away, putting some distance between us. Diego got a weird expression on his face and then he shot up to the surface like a bullet. I darted up after him, confused. When I broke through to air, he was almost choking on his laughter. What? He couldn't answer me for a minute. Finally, he blurted out, "Worst high five ever." I sniffed, irritated. Couldn't be sure you weren't just going to rip my arm off or something. Diego snorted. Why would it? I wouldn't do that. Anyone else would, I countered. True that, he agreed, suddenly not as amused. You up for a little more hunting? Do you have to ask? We came out of the water under a bridge and looked right into two homeless guys sleeping in ancient, filthy sleeping bags on top of a shared mattress of old newspapers. Neither one of them woke up. Their blood was soured by alcohol, but still better than nothing. We buried them in the sound too, under a different rock. Well, I'm good for a few weeks, Diego said. Then we were out of the water again, dripping on the end of another empty dock. I sighed. I guess it's the easier part, right? I'll be burning again in a couple of days, and then Riley will probably send me out with some more of Raul's mutants again. I can come with you if you want. Riley's pretty much lets me do what I want. I thought about the offer suspicious for a second, but Diego didn't really like any of the others. I felt different with him, like I didn't need to watch my back so much. That's sad. Like there's such like she just has to worry so much like that she can't even like give someone can't even like want to give her a high five without her being worried that they're gonna like kill her or rip an arm off or something.
Yeah, and I think it also like comes with the fact that she was abused, so it's like she has her guard up to like 10 times
Yeah.
more. And then it's like, because I mean, just thinking about how they portrayed in the movie, those newborns fought all the time, and because they're
Mm,
like irritated and ravenous, so it's like you look at one the wrong way and they're gonna come after you.
yeah. That is wild.
Mm. But I
I
love her
like
and
that.
Diego.
I know. I'm like I'm already like I want them to run away together. Oh, no. I like that, I admitted. It felt off to say this, too vulnerable or something. But Diego just said cool and smiled at me. So how come Riley gives you such a long leash? I asked, wondering about the relationship there. The more time I spent with Diego, the less I could picture him being in tight with Riley. Diego was so friendly, nothing like Riley, but maybe it was an opposite attract thing. Riley knows he can trust me to clean up my messes. Speaking of which, do you mind running a quick errand? I was starting to be entertained by this strange boy, curious about him. I wanted to see what he would do. Sure, I said. He bounded across the dock towards the road that ran along the waterfront. I followed after. I caught the scent of a few humans, but I knew it was too dark and we were too fast for them to see us. He chose to travel across rooftops again. After a few jumps, I recognized both our scents. He was retracing our earlier path, and then we were back to that first alley where Kevin and the other guy had gotten stupid with the car. Unbelievable, Diego growled. Kevin and Co. had just left, it appeared. Two other cars were stacked on top of the first, and a handful of bystanders had been added to the body count. The cops weren't here yet, because anyone who might have reported the mayhem was already dead. Help me sort this out, Diego asked. Okay. We dropped down and Diego quickly threw the cars into a new arrangement so that it sort of looked like they hit each other rather than being piled up by a giant tantrum throwing baby. I grabbed the two dry, lifeless bodies abandoned on the pavement and stuffed them under the apparent site of impact. Bad accident, I commented. Diego grinned. He took a lighter out of a Ziploc from his pocket and started igniting the clothes of the victims. I grabbed my own lighter. Riley reissued these when went hunting. Kevin should have used his and got to work on the upholstery. The bodies dried out and laced with flammable venom blazed up quickly. So they used their venom as like a gasoline type situation. So are they just like are they like spitting on them? Or
I can't even imagine if I was them and I have to like spit on my victim to ignite their body. Like,
that's what it is, right? Like they have to spit on them. I can't imagine what
well,
else
and
they
it
would do.
and it just makes you think about how like, wait, is that what Edward did when he needed to fill up the venom syringe for Bella?
Spit into the syringe. Or
What
I guess yeah, I don't
unless he just like holds it there and then lets it drip.
Well, I always imagined, like, I don't know if you ever seen the videos with the snakes when they're trying to get like the snake venom and they're like biting into this like cup, and I was like, I always imagined it like that.
Oh, oh my god. Yeah. Honestly, he just bite into it and it's just dripping down.
Yeah.
What page are you on?
16.
16. Okay. For some reason mine says 27.
We're on 17.
17. Okay. For some reason mine says 17. You want to go up to page 50, right?
Yeah, but if we find a stopping point before then, we could always stop.
Okay, because I was like, whenever you want me to take over, just let me know.
Okay, maybe at 25.
Okay.
Okay.
I think you were get back.
Yeah. Get back, Diego warned it, and I saw that he had the first car's gas hatch open and the lid screwed off the tank. I jumped up the closest wall, perching a story above to watch. He took a few steps back and lit a match. With perfect aim, he tossed it into the small hole. In the same second, he leaped up beside me. The boom of the explosion shook the whole street. Lights started going on around the corner. Well done, I said. Thanks for your help. Back to Riley's? Question mark. I frowned. Riley's house was the last place I wanted to spend the rest of my night. I didn't want to see Riley's stupid face or listen to the constant shrieking and fighting. I didn't want to have to grit my teeth and hide out behind Freaky Fred so that people would leave me alone, and I was out of my books. We've got some time, Diego said, reading my expression. We don't have to go right away. I could use some reading material, and I could use some new music. He grinned. Let's go shopping. We moved quickly through town, over rooftops again, and then darting through shadowy streets when the buildings got farther apart, to a friendlier neighborhood. It didn't take long to find a strip mall with one of the big chain bookstores. I snapped the lock on the roof access hatch and let us in. The store was empty, the only alarms on the windows and windows and doors. I went straight to the H's while Diego headed to the music section in the back. I just finished with Hail. Hail. Okay, Stephanie.
We know what you did there.
I know. I took the next dozen books in line. That would keep me a couple of days. I looked around for Diego and found him sitting at one of the cafe tables studying the backs of the new CDs. I paused, then joined him. This felt strange because it was familiar in a haunting, comfortable way. I had sat like this before, across the table from someone. I chatted casually with that person, thinking about things that were not life and death or thirst and blood. Come on, Stephanie. Come on. Jeez. But that had been in a different blurry lifetime. The last time I'd sat at a table with someone, that someone had been Riley. It was hard to remember that night for a lot of reasons. So how come I never noticed you around the house? Diego asked abruptly. Where do you hide? I laughed and grimaced at the same time. I usually kick it behind wherever Freaky Fred is hanging out. His nose wrinkled. Seriously, how do you stand that? You get used to it. It's not so bad behind him as it is in front. Anyways, it's the best hiding place I found. No one gets close to Fred. Diego nodded, still looking kind of grossed out. That's true. It's a way to stay alive. I shrugged. Did you know that Fred is one of Riley's favorites? Diego asked. Really? How? No one could stand Freaky Fred. I was the only person who tried, and that was solely out of self preservation. Diego leaned toward me conspiratorially. I was already so
That's
used to
long
his
ass
strange.
word.
I know, conspirator. That's a hard word. I didn't even flinch. I heard him on the phone with her. I shuddered. I know, he said, sounding sympathetic again. Of course, it wasn't weird that we could sympathize with each other when it came to her. This was a few months back anyway. Riley was talking about Fred, all excited. From what they were saying, I guess that some vampires can do things more than what normal vampires can do. I mean, and that's good. Something she's looking for. Vampires with skills. He pulled the sound out so I could hear how he was spelling it in his head. What kind of skills? All kinds of stuff. It sounds like mind reading and tracking and even seeing the future. Get out. I'm not kidding. I guess Fred can sort of repel people on purpose. It's all in our heads though. He makes us repulsed at the thought of being near him. I frowned. How is that a good thing? Keeps him alive, doesn't it? Guess it keeps you alive too. I nodded. Guess so. Did he say anything about anyone else? I tried to think of anything strange I'd seen or felt, but Fred was one of a kind. So I wonder, can Fred only make himself unone like or
Repulse.
yeah, or can he make other people
Yeah.
also feel like that?
Um, I don't know. I mean, I'm kind of thinking or hoping Stephanie is gonna get more into that because she mentioned in an article or an interview that in the upcoming books that she's writing that Fred is going to be returning and with the Volturi and like the Volturi is also in it. So it's kind of like, oh, did the Volturi get Fred? Is he with them? Or
Mm.
they found out about him and that he was with the army. So I wonder if by then maybe he's progressed his power. Because so far in Bree Tanner, I think it's just that he makes others feel as though he's repulsive. So it's like a
Mhm.
camouflage.
Yeah. Because I was
So
like, what if he was like unintentionally also making feel people repulsed of Bree? Because if she's hiding
yeah.
behind him, maybe it's just like unintentionally doing that. But
Yeah.
okay,
Or like if he has like a little bubble that if you're near the if you're too close to the bubble, then you get.
yeah. I wonder. Okay. Um, I nodded. Guess so. Did he say anything about anyone else? I tried to think of anything strange I'd seen or felt, but Fred was one of a kind. The clowns in the alley tonight pretending to be superheroes hadn't been doing anything the rest of us couldn't do. He talked about Raoul, Diego said, the corner of his mouth twisting down. What skill does Raoul have? Super stupidity? Diego sorted. Definitely that, but Riley thinks he's got some kind of magnetism. People are drawn to him, they follow him. Only the mentally challenged. Yeah, Riley mentioned that. Didn't seem to be effective on the. He broke out a decent impression of Riley's voice. Tamer kids. Tame? I inferred that he meant people like us who are able to think occasionally. I didn't like being called tame. It didn't sound like a good thing when you put it that way. Diego's way sounded better. It was like there was a reason Riley needed Raul to lead. Something's coming, I think. A weird tingle spasmed along my spine, like when he said that, and I sat up straighter. Like what? Do you ever think about why Riley's always after us to keep a low profile? I hesitated for half a second before answering. This wasn't the line of inquiry I would have expected from Riley's right hand man, almost like he was questioning what Riley had told us. Unless Diego was asking this for Riley, like a spy, finding out what the kids thought of him. But it didn't feel like that. Diego's dark red eyes were open and confiding, and why would Riley care? Maybe the way the others talked about Diego wasn't based on anything real, just gossip. I answered him truthfully. Yeah, actually, I was just thinking about that. We aren't the only vampires in the world, Diego said solemnly. I know, Riley says stuff sometimes, but there can't be too many. I mean, wouldn't we have noticed before? Diego nodded. That's what I think too, which is why it's pretty weird that she keeps making more of us, don't you think? I frowned. Huh? Because it's not like Riley actually likes us or anything. I paused again, waiting to see if he would contradict me. He didn't. He just waited, nodding silently in agreement. So I continued, and she hasn't even introduced herself. You're right, I hadn't looked at it that way. Well, I hadn't really thought about it at all, but then what do they want us for? Diego raised one eyebrow. Want to hear what I think? I nodded warily. But my anxiety had nothing to do with him now. Like I said, something is coming. I think she wants protection, and she put Riley in charge of creating the front line. I thought this through, my spine prickling again. Why wouldn't they tell us? Shouldn't we be like on the lookout or something? That would make sense, he agreed. We looked at each other in silence for a few long, seeming seconds. I had nothing more, and it didn't look like he did either. Finally, I grimaced and said, I don't know if I buy it. The part about Rule being good for anything, that is. The eagle laughed. Hard to argue that one. Then he glanced at the windows at the dark, early morning. Out of time. Better head back before we turn into Crispies. Oh my gosh, they don't know.
They don't know.
Oh my goodness. Okay.
They're being, yeah, they to keep them like controlled. Riley feeds them the typical vampire myths
Oh my goodness.
so that they
Okay.
won't know. Because then if they know, then they could escape.
They should. I want Bree and Diego to leave. Okay. Ashes, ashes, we all fall down, I sang under my breath as I got to my feet and collected my pile. Diego chuckled. We made one more quick stop on our way, hit the empty Target next door for big Ziplocs and two backpacks. I double bagged all my books. Water damaged pages annoy me. Then we mostly rooftopped it
Oh,
back to the water. The
I
sky was I love
sorry,
her.
I feel like her and Bella would get along so well because
They
Bella,
would.
is a bookworm and Bree's a bookworm, and Bella could have easily just been an older sister.
They could have been like besties too.
See, this is why I hate Stephanie because it's like she wrote this book and made us fall in love with Bree, even though we knew she was gonna freaking die because
Mhm.
we read it clips.
Okay. Ugh. She seems. I like Bree. Oh my goodness. Okay. Then we mostly rooftopped it back to the water. The sky was just faintly starting to gray up in the east. We slipped into the sound right under the noses of two oblivious night watchmen by the big ferry. Good thing for them, I was full or they would have been too close for my self control, and then raced through the murky water back towards Riley's place. At first, I didn't know it was a race. I was just swimming fast because the sky was getting lighter. I didn't usually push the time like this. If I were being honest with myself, I pretty much turned into a huge vampire nerd. I followed the rules. I didn't cause trouble. I hung out with the most unpopular kid in the group, and I always got home early. But then Diego really kicked it into gear. He got a few lengths ahead of me, turned back with a smile that said, What, can't you keep up? And then started booking it again. Well, I wasn't taking that. I couldn't really remember if I'd been the competitive type before. It all seemed so far away and unimportant. But maybe I was because I responded right away to the challenge. Diego was a good swimmer, but I was way stronger, especially after just feeding. See ya, I mouthed as I passed him, but I wasn't sure he saw. I lost him back in the dark water, and I didn't waste time looking to see by how much I was winning. I just jetted through the sound till I hit the edge of the island where the most recent of our homes was located. The last one had been a big cabin in the middle of Snowville nowhere, on the side of some mountain in the Cascades. Like the last one, this house was remote, had a big basement, and had recently deceased owners. I raced up onto the shallow stony beach and then dug my fingers into the sandstone bluff and flew up. I heard Diego come out of the water just as I gripped the trunk of an overhanging pine and flipped myself over the cliff edge. Two things caught my attention as I landed gently on the balls of my feet. One, it was really light out. Two, the house was gone. Well, not entirely gone. Some of it was still visible, but the space the house had once occupied was empty. The roof had collapsed into a ragged, angular, wooden lace, charred black, sagging lower than the front door had been. And that is your turn to start reading.
Okay. Ooh, so what happened to the house?
I know.
The sun was rising fast. The black pine trees were showing hints of evergreen. Soon the paler tips would stand out against the dark, and about that point I would be dead, or really dead, or whatever. The second thirst hold on. This second thirsty superhero life would go up in a sudden burst of flames, and I could only imagine that the burst would be very, very painful. This wasn't the first time I'd seen our house destroyed with all the fights and fires in the basement. Most of them lasted only a few weeks. But it was the first time I'd come across the scene of destruction with the first faint rays of sunlight threatening. I sucked in a sudden gasp of shock as Diego landed beside me. Maybe burrow under the roof, I whispered. Would that be safe enough? Or don't freak out, Bree, Diego said, sounding too calm. I know a place. Come on. He did a very graceful backflip off the bluff edge. I didn't think the water would be enough of a filter to block the sun, but maybe we couldn't burn it if we were submerged. It seemed like a really poor plan to me. However, instead of tunneling under the burned out hull of the wrecked house, I dove off the cliff behind me. I wasn't sure of my reasoning, which was a strange feeling. Usually, I did what I always did: followed the routine, did what makes sense. I caught up to Diego in the water. He was racing again, but with no nonsense this time, racing the sun. He whipped around a point on the little island and then dove deep. I was surprised he didn't hit the rocky floor of the sound, and more surprised when I could feel the blast of warmer current flowing from what I had thought was no more than an outcropping of rock. Smart of Diego to have a place like this. Sure, it wasn't going to be fun to sit in an underwater cavern all day, not breathing starting to irritate after a few hours, but it was better than exploding into ashes. I should have been thinking like Diego was, thinking about something other than blood, that is. I should have been prepared for the unexpected. Diego kept going through a narrow crevice in the rocks. It was black as ink in here. Safe. I couldn't swim anymore. The space was too tight, so I scrambled through like Diego, climbing through the twisting space. I kept waiting for him to stop, but he didn't. Suddenly, I realized that we really were going up. And then I heard Diego hit the surface. I was out a half a second after he was. The cave was no more than a small hole, a burrow about the size of a Volkswagen Beetle. Though not as tall as that, a second crawl space led out the back, and I could taste the fresh air coming from that direction. I could see the shape of Diego's figures repeated again and again in the texture of the limestone walls. Nice place, I said. Diego smiled. Better than Freaky Fred's backside. I can't argue with that. Thanks. You're welcome. We looked at each other in the dark for a minute. His face was smooth and calm. With anyone else, Kevin or Christy or any of the others, this would have been terrifying. The constricted space, the forced closeness, the way I could smell his scent on every side of me, that could have meant a quick and painful death at any second. But Diego was so composed, not like anyone else. How old are you? He asked abruptly. Oh, how old are you? 17. Stephanie!
They're Bella and Edward, but evil.
Younger.
Younger, evil. They're already both vampires.
Yeah. 3 months. I told you that. That's not what I meant. How old were you? I guess that's the right thing to ask. I leaned away, uncomfortable, when I realized he was talking about human stuff. Nobody talked about that. Nobody wanted to think about it. But I didn't want to end the conversation. Oh, oops, hold on. I got to the page. Didn't want to end the conversation either. Just having a conversation at all was something new and different. I hesitated, and he waited with a curious expression. I was, I guess 15, almost 16. I can't remember the day. Was I past my birthday? I tried to think about it, but those last hungry weeks were a big blur, and it hurt my head in a weird way to try and clear them up. I shook my head and let it go. How about you? I was just past my 18th, Diego said. So close. Close to what? Getting out, he said, but he didn't continue. There was an awkward silence for a minute, and then he changed the subject. You've done really well since you got here, he said, his eyes sweeping across my crossed arms, my folded legs. You've survived, avoided the wrong kind of attention, kept intact. I shrugged and then yanked my left t-shirt sleeve up my shoulder so he could see the thin, ragged line that circled my arm. Got this ripped off once, I admitted. Got it back before Jen could toast it. Riley showed me how to put it back on. Homegirl!
So they reconnected their limbs, but with their saliva, right?
Yeah.
Like they have to lick their saliva and then but they have to lick whatever body part fell off and then just put it back on, stick it back on.
I'm trying to think of Cherish's podcast episode on vampire anatomy because I feel like she touched on it.
I
Because
think she
that's like the only
did.
way they could, right?
I think so. I mean, that's the only way that I can think that they could is by like licking it or like spitting on their
And,
arm.
and then like super glue and just holding it there.
Yeah, it'll stay after like 30 seconds of holding it.
Uh,
Uh,
something what we can confer for this, especially, and like I already told you kind of a little bit about Bree's past. I don't know if she'll get more into it, but we kind of get a little hint that maybe it was the same for Diego because it was like he was like getting out, so maybe
maybe
he
he was
didn't have
in
a good
like
home
a
life.
maybe he was in a group home or something
Yeah,
type of situation. How sad.
I know.
Okay.
Okay. Diego smiled wearily and touched his right knee with one finger. His jeans covered the scar that must have been there. It happens to everybody. Ouch, I said. He nodded. Seriously, but like I was saying before, you're a pretty decent vampire. Am I supposed to say thanks? I'm just thinking out loud, trying to make sense of things. What things? He frowned a little. What's really going on? What's Riley up to? Why he keeps bringing the most random kids to her? Why it doesn't seem to matter to Riley if it's someone like you or if it's someone like that idiot Kevin. It sounded like he didn't know Riley any better than I did. What do you mean, someone like me? I asked. You're the kind that Riley should be looking for, the smart ones, not just these stupid gangbangers that Raoul keeps bringing in. I bet you weren't some junkie hoe. No, I gotta reread that. I bet you weren't some junkie hoe when you were human. I
Wow,
shifted.
Diego.
Yeah.
Stephanie Junkie Ho. Oh my goodness. Okay.
She's just going right for the kill.
She really is.
I shifted uneasily at the last word. Diego kept waiting for my answer, like he hadn't said anything weird. I took a deep breath and thought back. I was close enough, I admitted after a few seconds of his patient watching. Not there yet, but in a few more weeks, I shrugged. I don't remember much, but I do remember thinking there was nothing more powerful on this planet than just plain old hunger. Turns out thirst is worse. He laughed. Sing it, sister. What about you? You weren't a troubled teen runaway like the rest of us. Oh, I was troubled, all right. He stopped talking. But I could sit around and wait for the answers to inappropriate questions, too. I just stared at him. He sighed. The scent of his breath was nice. Everybody smelled sweet, but Diego had a little something extra, some spice like cinnamon or cloves. I tried to stay away from all that junk, studied hard. I was going to get out of the ghetto, go to college, make something of myself. But there was a guy, not much different than Raoul. Join or die, that was his motto. I wasn't having any, so I stayed away from his group. I was careful, stayed alive. He stopped, closing his eyes. I wasn't done being pushy. And my kid brother wasn't as careful. I was about to ask if his brother had joined or died, but the expression on his face made asking unnecessary. I looked away, not sure how to respond. I couldn't really understand his loss. The pain is still clearly caused him to feel. I hadn't left anything behind that I still missed. Was that the difference? Was that why he dwelled on memories that the rest of us shunned? I still didn't see how Riley came into this. Riley and the cheeseburger of pain. Oh. I wanted that part of the story, but now I felt bad for pushing him to answer. Lucky for my curiosity, Diego kept going after a minute. I kind of lost it. Stole a guy from a friend and went hunting, he chuckled darkly. Wasn't as good as it back then. Wasn't as good at it back then. I keep adding the word. Wasn't as good at it then, but I got the guy that got my brother before they got me. The rest of his crew had me cornered in an alley. Then suddenly Riley was there, between me and them. I remember thinking he was the whitest guy I had ever seen. He didn't he didn't even look at the others when they shot him, like the bullets were flies. You know what he said to me? He said, "Want a new life, kid?" Ha! I laughed. That's way better than mine. All I got was, "Want a burger, kid?" I still remember how Riley looked that night, though the image was all blurry because my eyes sucked back then. He was the hottest boy I'd ever seen. Tall and blonde and perfect, every feature. I knew his eyes must be just as beautiful behind the dark sunglasses he never took off, and his voice was so gentle, so kind. I figured I knew what he would want in exchange for the meal, and I would have given it to him too. Not because he was so pretty to look at, but because I hadn't eaten anything but trash for 2 weeks. It turned out he wanted something else though.
Oh, she was ready
Insinuating.
to throw it back for a burger.
I feel it's I'm sorry, I laughed because of the way you said it, but it's actually kind of sad and heartbreaking
Yeah.
that she was about to like give a part of her that she probably wouldn't have been comfortable with in order
Yeah.
just to get some food.
That's
Oh,
true.
Bree, you deserve better.
But
Diego
that
left.
also sucks. And what also sucks is that if I mean, considering that Riley's like this gorgeous vampire, right? And so she
Yeah.
was like, I mean, like I would have given it to him anyways. But like if it was like you have to think about it also that if it was like an old disgusting man who was offering her food, she probably would have also had that same kind of like mindset, you know?
Yeah.
So that's sad.
Oh, Bree.
Mm.
Diego laughed at the burger line. You must have been pretty hungry. Damn straight. So why were you so hungry? Because I was stupid and ran away before I had a driver's license. I couldn't get a real job, and I was a bad thief. What were you running from? I hesitated. The memories were a little more clear as I focused on them, and I wasn't sure I wanted that. Oh, come on, he coaxed. I told you mine. Yeah, you did. Okay, I was running from my dad. He used to knock me around a lot. Probably did the same to my mom before she took off. I was pretty little then. I didn't know much. It got worse. I figured if I waited too long, I'd end up dead. He told me if I ever ran away, I'd starve. He was right about that. Only thing that he was right about, as far as I'm concerned, I don't think about it much. Diego nodded in agreement. Hard to remember that stuff, isn't it? Everything's so fuzzy and dark. Like trying to see with mud in your eyes. Good way to put it, he complimented me. He squinted at me like he was trying to see and rubbed his eyes. We laughed together again. Weird. I don't think I've
I was
laughed
gonna
with.
say, it's interesting because I remember Edward telling Bella that like the memories of like their human life get like fuzzier like as they get older, and but it's so weird that they're so new to it, but still their memories are so um like hazed by like even though she's only 3 months, but she's still it's kind of like dark and fuzzy to her. But I was thinking about it. I wonder if they're like of the way that they live is causes it to be even more fuzzy because it feels like like Edward and Rosalie and well besides Alice and Jasper can remember and Carlisle can like
Yeah.
remember their stuff. It probably to me seems like maybe they had like a less traumatic like newborn life rather than
Yeah.
and I
Yeah.
wonder if
I
that
mean,
kind of like contributes to their memory from when they're human.
yeah. Because, like, Rosalie remembers a lot from her past. And I mean, Alice, we know she doesn't know anything because of the electric shock therapy that she had that kind of had a toll on it. But it's like they all had the ones who Carlisle turned, they had him with their
Mm-hmm.
newborn life. They're like, freaking Riley, no, Victoria bit them and was like, "You're for the streets." So,
Yeah. So that's interesting how there's she's so new, but it's still so like fuzzy to her.
yeah.
Okay, you can go.
Where was I at?
I don't
Oh,
think I've
okay, I
laughed.
found it.
Yeah.
I don't think I've laughed with anybody since I met Riley, he said, echoing my thoughts. This is nice. You're nice. Not like the others. You ever try to have a conversation with one of them? Nope, I haven't. You're not missing anything, which is my point. Wouldn't Riley's standard of living be a little higher if he surrounded himself with decent vampires? If we're supposed to protect her, shouldn't he be looking for the smart ones? So Riley doesn't need brains, I reason. He needs numbers. Diego pursed his lips, considering. Like chess. He's not making knights and bishops. We're just pawns, I realized. We stared at each other again for a long minute. I don't want to think that, Diego said. So what do we do? I asked, using the plural automatically, like we were already a team. He thought about my question for a second, seeming uneasy, and I regretted the we. But then he said, what can we do when we don't know what's happening? So he didn't mind the team thing, which made me feel really good in a way I didn't remember ever feeling. I guess we keep our eyes open, pay attention, try to figure it out. He nodded. We need to think about everything Riley's told us, everything he's done. He paused thoughtfully. You know, I tried to hash some of this out with Riley once, but he couldn't have cared less. Told me to keep my mind on more important things, like thirst, which was all I could think about then, of course. He sent me out hunting, and I stopped worrying. I watched him thinking about Riley, his eyes unfocused as he relived the memory, and I wondered. Diego was my first friend in this life, but I wasn't his. Suddenly, his focus snapped back to me. So, what have we learned from Riley? I concentrated, running through the last 3 months in my head. He really doesn't tell us much, just the vampire basics. We'll have to listen more carefully. We sat in silence, pondering over this. I mostly thought about how much I didn't know, and why hadn't I worried about everything I didn't know before now. It was like talking to Diego had cleared my head. For the first time in 3 months, blood was not the main thing in there. The silence lasted for a while. The black hole I felt funneling fresh air into the cave wasn't black anymore. It was dark gray now and getting what the fuck? It was dark gray now and getting infinitesimally. What is this word, Stephanie?
Oh my
Infinitesimal. I'm not even gonna attempt again. Lighter with each second. Diego noticed me eyeing it nervously. Don't worry, he said. Some dim light gets in here on sunny days. It doesn't hurt, he shrugged. Oh, it doesn't hurt? I wonder why.
Oh.
I scooted closer to the hole in the floor, where the water was disappearing as the tide went out. Seriously, Bree, I've been down here before during the day. I told Riley about this cave, and now it was mostly filled with water, and he said it was cool when I needed to get out of the madhouse. Anyway, do I look like I got singed? I hesitated, thinking about how different his relationship with Riley was than mine. His eyebrows rose, waiting for an answer. No, I finally said. But, look, he said impatiently. He crawled swiftly to the tunnel and stuck his arm out in the shoulder. Nothing. I nodded once. Relax. Do you want me to see how high I can go? As he spoke, he stuck his head into the hole and started climbing. Don't, Diego. He was already out of sight. I'm relaxed, I swear. He was laughing. It sounded like he was already several yards at the tunnel. I wanted to go after him, to grab his foot and yank him back, but I was frozen with stress. It would be stupid to risk my life to save some total stranger. But I hadn't had anything close to a friend forever. Already it would be hard to go back to living no one to talk to after only one night. No estoy quemado. I haven't spoke Spanish in so long.
No estoy quemando.
No estoy quemando. I put the words in different places. He called down, his tone teasing. Wait, is that ow, Diego? Wait, Diego? I leaped across the cave and stuck my head into the tunnel. His face was right there, inches from mine. Boo! I flinched back from his proximity, just a reflex. Old habit. Funny, I said dryly, moving away as he slid back into the cave. You need to unwind, girl. I've looked into this, okay? Indirect sunlight doesn't hurt. So you're saying that I could just stand under a nice shady tree and be fine? He hesitated for a minute, as if debating whether or not to tell me something, and then he said quietly, I did once. I stared at him, waiting for the grin, because this was a joke. It didn't come. Riley said, I started, and then my voice trailed off. Yeah, I know what Riley said, he agreed. Maybe Riley doesn't know as much as he says he does. But Shelley and Steve, Doug and Adam, that kid with the bright red hair, all of them, they're gone now because they didn't get back in time. Riley saw the ashes. Diego's brows pulled together unhappily. Everyone knows that old-timey vampires had to stay in coffins during the day, I went on, to keep out of the sun. That's common knowledge, Diego. You're right. All the stories do say that. And what would Riley gain by locking us up in a light-proof basement, one big group coffin, all day anyway? We just demolish the place and he has to deal with all the fighting and its constant turmoil. You can't tell me he enjoys it. Something I said surprised him. He sat with his mouth open for a second, then closed it. What? Common knowledge, he repeated. What do vampires do in coffins all day? Oh yeah, they're supposed to sleep, right? But I guess they're probably just laying there bored because we don't. Okay, so that part's wrong. Yeah. In the stories, they're not just asleep, though. They're totally unconscious. They can't wake up. A human can walk right up and stake them, no problem. And that's the other thing, stakes. You really think someone could shove a piece of wood through you? I shrugged. I haven't really thought about it. I mean, not a normal piece of wood, obviously. Maybe sharpened wood that has some kind of, I don't know, magical properties or something. Diego snorted. Please. Well, I don't know. I wouldn't just hold still while some human ran at me with a filed broom handle. Anyway, she's too funny. Oh, I love her.
She is very Bella-esque.
I know. Oh, they would get along. What the hell? And she has brown hair and like, you know, all that. I'm like, they could really be sisters. Oh, Diego, still with a sort of disgusted look on his face, as if magic were really such a reach when you're a vampire, rolled to his knees and started crawling into the limestone above his head. Tiny stone shards filled his hair, but he ignored them. What are you doing? Experimenting. He dug with both his hands until he could stand upright and then kept going. Diego, you get to the surface, you explode. Stop it. I'm not trying to. Here we go. Hold on. Sorry, I don't know if like my mic was picking that up, but like my grandma was starting to like talk to herself, and she was getting loud. Okay.
I heard a little, but I don't think it didn't sound like anything.
Okay, I wanted to just close the door in case she starts yelling, because sometimes it gets to that, and if it gets to the point where I can hear her through the door, I'm gonna need to like step out so I can like calm her down. Okay. Stop it. Okay. I'm not trying to. Here we go. There was a loud crack and then another crack, but no light. He ducked back down to where I could see his face, with a piece of tree root in his hands, white, dead, and dry under the clumps of dirt. The edge where he'd broken, it was sharp, uneven point. He tossed it to me. Stake me. I tossed it back. Whatever. Seriously, you know it can't hurt me. He lobbed the wood to me. Instead of catching it, I batted it back. He snagged it out of the air and groaned. You are so superstitious. I am a vampire. If that doesn't prove that superstitious people are right, I don't know what does. Fine, I'll do it. He held the branch away from himself dramatically, arm extended, like it was a sword, and he was about to impale himself. Come on, I said uneasily. This is silly. That's my point. Here goes nothing. He crushed the wood into his chest, right where his heart used to beat, with enough force to punch through a granite slab. I was totally frozen with panic until he laughed. You should see your face, Bree. I stiffed the splinter. No. He sifted the splinters of broken wood through his fingers. The shattered root fell to the floor in mangled pieces. Diego brushed at his shirt, though it was too trashed from all the swimming and digging for the attempt to do any good. We'd both have to steal more clothes the next time we got the chance. Maybe it's different when a human does it, because you felt so magical when you were human. I don't know, Diego, I said, exasperated. I didn't make up all those stories. He nodded, suddenly more serious. What if the stories are exactly that? Made up. I sighed. What difference does it make? Not sure. But if we're going to be smart about why we're here, why Riley brought us to her, why she's making more of us, then we have to understand as much as we possibly can. He frowned, every trace of laughter totally gone from his face now. I just stared back at him. I didn't have any answers. His face softened just a little. This helps a lot, you know. Talking about it helps me focus. Me too, I said. I don't know why I never thought about any of this before. It seems so obvious. We're working on it together. I don't know. I can stay on track better. Exactly, he smiled at me. I'm really glad you came out tonight. Don't get all gooey on me now. What? You don't want to be, he widened his eyes and his voice went up an octave. BFFs? He laughed at the goofy expression. Stop, they're so cute.
They're so cute.
I rolled my eyes, not totally sure if he was making fun of the expression or of me. Come on, Bree, be my bestest bud forever, please. Still teasing, but his wide smile was natural and hopeful. He held out his hand. This time I went for a real high five, not realizing until he caught my hand and held it that he intended anything else. It was shockingly weird to touch another person after a whole life, because the last 3 months were my whole life of avoiding any kind of contact, like touching a sparking down power line, only to find out that it felt nice. The smile on my face felt a little lopsided. Count me in. Excellent. Our own private club. Very exclusive, I agreed. He still had my hand, not shaking it, but not exactly holding it either. We need a secret handshake. You can be in charge of that one. So the super secret best friends club is called to order. All present. Secret handshake to be devised at a later date, he said. First order of business. Riley. Clueless, misinformed, or lying? His eyes were on mine as he spoke, white and sincere. There was no change as he said Riley's name. In that instant, I was sure there was nothing to do to the stories about Diego and Riley. Diego had just been around more than the others, nothing more. I could trust him. Add this to the list, I said. Agenda, as in, what is his? Bullseye. That's exactly what we've got to find out. But first, another experiment. That word makes me nervous. Trust is an essential part of the whole secret club gig. He stood up into the extra ceiling space he just carved out and started digging again. In a second, his feet were dangling while he held himself up with one hand and excavated with the other. You better be digging for garlic, I warned him, and backed up toward the tunnel that led to the sea. The stories aren't real, Bree, he called to me. He pulled himself higher into the hole he was making, and the dirt continued to rain down. He was going to fill in his hidey hole at this rate, or flood it with light, which would make it even more useless. I slid most of the way into the escape channel, just my fingertips and eyes above the edge. The water only came up to my hips. It would take me just the smallest fraction of a second to disappear into the darkness below. I could spend a day not breathing. I'd never been a fan of fire. This might have been because of some buried childhood memory, or maybe it was more recent. Becoming a vampire was enough fire to last me. Diego had to be close to the surface. Once again, I struggled with the idea of losing my new and only friend. Please stop, Diego, I whispered, knowing he would probably laugh, knowing he wouldn't listen. Trust, Bree. I waited, unmoving. Almost, he muttered. Okay. I tensed for the light or the spark or the explosion, but Diego dropped back down while it was still dark. In his hand, he had a longer root, a thick, snaky thing that was almost as tall as me. He gave me an I told you so kind of look. I'm not a completely reckless person, he said. He gestured to the root with his free hand. See? Precautions. With that, he stabbed the root upward into his new hole. There was a final avalanche of pebbles and sand, and as Diego dropped back onto his knees, getting out of the way, and then a beam of brilliant light, a ray about the thickness of one of Diego's arms, pierced the darkness of the cave. The light made a pillar from the ceiling to the floor, shimmering as the drifting dirt shifted through it. I was icy still, gripping the ledge, ready to drop. Diego didn't jerk away or cry out in pain. There was no smell of smoke. The cave was 100 times lighter than it had been, but it didn't seem to affect him. So maybe his story about shade trees are true. I watched him carefully as he knelt beside the pillar of sunlight, motionless, staring. He seemed fine, but there was a slight change to his skin, a kind of movement, maybe from the settling dust that reflected the gleam. It looked almost like he was glowing a little. Maybe it wasn't the dust. Maybe it was the burning. Maybe it didn't hurt and he'd realize it was too late. Seconds passed as we stared at the daylight motionless. Then, in a move that seemed both absolutely expected and also completely unthinkable, he held out his hand, palm up, and stretched his arm to the beam. I moved faster than I could think, which was pretty dang fast. Faster than I'd ever moved before. I tackled Diego into the back wall of the dirt-filled low cave before he could reach that one last inch to put his skin in the light. The room was filled with a sudden blaze, and I felt the warmth on my leg in the same instant that I realized there wasn't enough room for me to pin Diego to the wall without some part of myself touching the sunlight. Bree, he gasped. I twisted away from him automatically, rolling myself tight against the wall. It took less than a second, and the whole time I was waiting for the pain to get me, for the flames to hit and then spread like the nights I'd met her, only faster. The dazzling flash of light was gone. It was just the pillar of sun again. I looked at Diego's face. His eyes were wide, his mouth hanging open. He was totally still, a sure sign of alarm. I wanted to look down at my leg, but I was afraid to see what was left. This wasn't like Jen ripping my arm off, though that had hurt more. I wasn't going to be able to fix this. Still no pain yet. Bree, did you see that? I shook my head once quickly. How bad is it? Bad? My leg, I said through my teeth. Just tell me what's left. Your leg looks fine to me. I glanced down quickly, and sure enough, there was my foot and my calf, just like before. I wiggled my toes. Fine. Does it hurt? He asked. I pulled myself off the ground onto my knees. Not yet. Did you see what happened? The light? I shook my head. Watch this. he said, kneeling in front of the beam of sunshine again. And don't shove me out of the way this time. You already proved I'm right. He put his hand out. It was almost hard to watch this time, even if my leg felt normal. The second his fingers entered the beam, the cave was filled with a million brilliant rainbow reflections. It was bright as noon in a glass room, light everywhere. I flinched and then shuddered. There was sunlight all over me. Unreal, Diego whispered. He put the rest of his hand into the beam, and then the cave somehow got even brighter. He rolled his hand over to look at the back, then turned it palm up again. The reflections danced like he was spinning a prism. There was no smell of burning, and he clearly wasn't in pain. I looked closely at his hand, and it seemed like there was a zillion tiny mirrors in the surface, too small to distinguish separately, all shining black back the light with double the intensity of a regular mirror. Come here, Bree. You have to try this. I couldn't think of a reason to refuse, and I was curious, but I was also still reluctant as I slid to the side. No burn? None. Light doesn't burn us. It just reflects off of us. I guess that's kind of an understatement. Slow as a human, I reluctantly stretched my fingers into the light. Immediately, reflection blazed away from my skin, making the room so bright that the day outside would look dark in comparison. They weren't exactly reflections, though, because the light was bent and colored, more like crystal. I stuck my whole hand in, and the room got brighter. Do you think Riley knows? I whispered. Maybe, maybe not. Why wouldn't he tell us if he did? What would be the point? So we're walking disco balls? I shrugged. Diego laughed. I can see where... Didn't Bella say that? Or did she?
Maybe.
Or maybe I saw that in a fan fiction. Someone wrote that. I can see where the stories come from. Imagine if you saw this when you were human. Wouldn't you think that the guy over there just burst into flames if he didn't hang around? Yeah.
I was thinking of that right now when they were like putting their hand, and I was like, well, no wonder. They probably think that they burnt up.
Exploded. It was so bright that it blinded them.
Yeah.
If he didn't hang around to chat, maybe. This is incredible, Diego said. With one finger, he traced a line across my glowing palm. Then he jumped to his feet right under the sunbeam, and the room went crazy with light. Come on, let's get out of here. He reached up and pulled himself toward the hole he'd cut to the surface. You think I would have been over it, but I was still nervous to follow. Not wanting to seem like a total chicken, I stayed close on his heels, but I was cringing inside the whole way. Riley had really made his point about burning in the sun. In my mind, it was linked to that horrific time of burning as I became a vampire, and I couldn't escape the instinctive panic that filled me every time I thought of it. Then Diego was out of the hole, and I was next to him half a second later. We stood on a small patch of wild grass, only a few feet from the trees that covered the island. Behind us, it was just a couple of yards to the low bluff, and then the water. Everything around us blazed in color and light shining off of us. Wow, I muttered. Diego grinned at me, his face beautiful with light, and suddenly, with a deep lurch in my stomach, I realized that the whole BFF thing was way off the mark. For me, anyway. It was just that fast. His grin softened a little bit.
This is page 50, by the way.
Aw. Okay, well, it doesn't tell me. Tell me when I get to the end of your page because my screen is smaller, so it's like half pages.
You'll end it permanently.
Permanently?
Yeah.
Oh, I see where it is. Okay. His grin softened a little bit.
She likes him, right? Is that what that insinuates to me?
I don't want to say anything because we got to read it.
Oh, no, okay.
You'll find out. But okay. I don't know if it actually says it, but if it doesn't say it, if we get to the end of it doesn't say it, because I can't remember, then I'll tell you something. His grin softened a little bit into just the hint of a smile. His eyes were wide like mine, all in lights. He touched my face the way he touched my hand, as if he was trying to understand the shine. So pretty, he said. He left his hand against my cheek. I'm not sure how long we stood there, smiling like total idiots, blazing away like glass torches. The inlet was empty of boats, which was probably good. No way even a mud-eyed human would have missed this. Not that they could have done anything to us, but I wasn't thirsty, and all the screaming would have ruined the mood. Eventually, a thick cloud drifted in front of the sun. Suddenly, we were just us again. though slightly luminous, though still slightly luminous. Not enough that anyone with eyes duller than a vampire's would notice. As soon as the shine was gone, my thoughts cleared up and I could think about what was coming next. But even though Diego looked like his normal self again, not made of blazing light anyway, I knew he would never look the same to me. That tingling sensation in the pit of my stomach was still there. I had the feeling it might be there permanently.
Goodness. I'm so sad that she dies now.
It's gonna. I mean, I read this, so I know exactly. I know what happens, and I'm just gonna like warn you now. It's gonna break your heart when you realize something.
Okay.
Because I distinctly remember when we did it was one of our earlier episodes. I had explained something, and I had kind of told you a big part of this book.
I don't even remember it, so you're fine.
It's a good thing you do. It's a good thing you don't remember, because it will, like, I remember I explained something and I'm all like, oh my god, I don't know if she remembers, but you'll find out.
I don't remember it all. Oh, okay. Oh my goodness. Well, I'm like, I really like it so far.
I know. I think this is, I really liked this because, like, by then this was her fifth book and she was writing it with the host. So that's why it kind of like, I don't know, Twilight was her first book. So that's why her like writing was like a little, mediocre. But this, she like, it looks,
she's a little bit more established.
Yeah. Cause she wrote this 2 years after Breaking Dawn. So she had, worked. And I really like Bree Tanner, and I really wish that we got more of her.
Yeah, I like this. It's a different writing style, I think. Than Twilight, or it's like similar, but like it's more evolved, and I kind of like that a little bit more.
Yeah, that's kind of like why I really like Midnight Sun, because it just has a different feel, and like the writing is different.
It's more evolved. I think than Twilight was. My goal for this year is to reread the entire saga. That's just like my little reading personal goal.
Yeah.
So,
I started rereading it in 2020 because that was kind of like one of my TikToks that blew up, was me rereading and reacting to Twilight, but I never finished Eclipse, and I haven't read Breaking Dawn since I first read it, like
I haven't
8 years ago.
I haven't read New Moon Eclipse or Breaking Dawn in so long. Like, I feel like there's so much that I'm like missing also, because it's just been so long since I've read them. And then I recently read Twilight in 2020. I think I read it in 2021, right?
And then you read Life and Death.
Life and Death, and then Midnight Sun. So I want to.
So you basically read Twilight 3 different times.
Yeah, exactly. So I don't need to. Maybe I don't need to read it again. I just need to read New Moon. So I'm gonna start a New Moon.
When I tell you that when I reread New Moon, I was like, like I could not help the tears. I was like, why is this so much sadder than I remember?
I know. Oh my god.
I was like, Edward, you bitch.
I'm a pretty quick reader. I remember sitting down and reading Midnight Sun in like the matter of a couple of days. There are some people that
you finished it on your toilet.
Yeah. I was crying, sobbing. Dude, I couldn't put it down. I was just like, anywhere I would go, I was like, I didn't even want to shower because then I like couldn't even like read it in the shower.
Oh my,
I would take it everywhere with me.
I was reading it, and I remember I like had my headphones in, and I was playing Bella's Lullaby during the chapter he composed it, and I was like, oh. And then when he played it for her, I was like, oh. this hits different.
Yeah, it really
Supermassive black hole hits different when you read the Midnight Sun baseball scene
yeah,
because Stephanie gave us a full baseball scene.
like a good one. Oh my
Oh, well, that
gosh,
was
I'm so
good.
sad. I imagine if Bree Tanner was an extra book in Eclipse.
It
I wonder
probably would have been.
how that
Mhm.
would have changed. I wonder how that would have changed. Kind of like how there's like Edward's POV in or no Jacob's POV in Breaking Dawn, something similar
Yeah.
to that.
And
Like
then the
right,
epilogue of
yeah.
Eclipses and Jacobs.
Is the fight scene better in Bree Tanner than in Eclipse?
Yes. And it's kind of sadder.
Oh no. See, I
Just
think
because,
she should have added that in. Like that should have been the ending of Eclipse. Well, it should have been like a little extra part and then
yeah.
like finished it with the events that happened after that. Like back to
Yeah.
Bella's POV after Bree kicks the bucket.
And it's like, I really wish that this book had been released prior to them filming because Bree could have had such a, a more like role, and
Mm-hmm.
especially, and I feel like, I mean, the fucking reason why she was even there at the battle. You're like, when we get to that part, I'm gonna lose my mind because it
Oh
pisses me off that Stephanie would do that. And it's like I was like, you already know that you're gonna kill her, and you just had to go and rip my heart out like that
oh no. Okay.
because
Well, I can't
so
even.
close.
Oh, jeez. Well, I'm not. I'm gonna
If
have to
you,
mentally prepare myself.
if you, and
Like,
if you, if you find yourself reading it before we come back, I won't be surprised. So,
no, I won't. I'll be really good, and I won't read ahead.
because
Also,
I do def
I really think that this is one of the better book covers that we've
I
gotten.
I love this book cover
I like the book
because
cover too.
and just because like the symbolism behind like the hourglass,
Hmm. I
and
really
I
like this
like
book cover.
it. I like that you have the old cover because oh my god, I just like even on my freaking on my Apple Book version, it's the
Hmm.
new book cover with the name so enlarged.
Oh yeah, no.
I was like, come on, even
Which
the
is one of the out of the enlarged one, it's one of the better ones than the other ones,
mm-hmm,
but it's
yeah.
still
I like I'm just like I'm like no the hourglass like I don't know the enlarged I feel like the enlarged wording takes away the cover, and that's I think why I don't like the new covers.
yeah.
And you know what really makes me upset is that freaking the new white box set with Midnight Sun is gonna have the new cover,
Oh.
and I'm like gross.
I might get it just so that I can have a white Midnight Sun,
Yeah.
but I don't like the new covers. She really missed the mark with that one, I think. I feel like
Yeah.
she needs to hire a better graphic design team
Yeah.
because there's so many ways that these book covers could be literally iconic, more than they already are. I like the original, but they're also very like simple, like they're very like plain to the point, you know.
Yeah.
Um,
I
like
I really
if you look at what some of the like some creators are doing with their dust covers, they're like gorgeous. Like remember Twilight? It's just literally like
yeah.
out of this
Like
world, you know?
she would have such a better, doing like a small creator than having to go with whoever the publisher
Yeah.
decides. I mean, I still a controversial opinion, but I'm not a big fan of the pomegranate on Midnight Sun just as much just in the sense that it's so large. I feel
Mm,
like it would have been better if like the pomegranate instead of facing it like that so it looks like a I know they were trying to do the whole bleeding heart situation with the pomegranate But if it was
Yeah.
like laying down on its side and like you see like the juice and the pomegranate seeds, I feel like that would have been better than having it like upright. I don't know.
Mm.
But if it was like laying down and then you had like a light shining down on it, I don't know. I feel like the pomegranate could have been better.
I think they also could have done it like done it like the hand holding thing again with the pomegranate. I think
Yeah, I
that
mean
could
they
have
did
been,
it with life and death.
yeah, and I think that it would have been just as effective. Is then they could have also like, because sometimes like pomegranate seeds like will stay in your hand. So if they added like more like pomegranate juice, it could have been more like of the bleeding heart thing. I also think that I really my favorite thing about Midnight Sun is how on the title page it has like that statue.
Of
And
Persephone
I
in
thought,
Hades.
yeah, and I think that would have been a really cool cover. Like the Persephone statue would have been like a really cool cover.
They should have had it with Persephone biting into the pomegranate
Hmm.
because
Like
that's how
our
she sold herself to
like
Hades.
our podcast. Duh.
Yeah, come on, Stephanie. We're doing your
And
job here.
so hers in the Second Life of Britannia, I think hers is a picture of Seattle. It looks like an alleyway in Seattle or something. I just assume because it looks like I'm pretty sure it's an alley, but it's also wet. So I'm assuming it's Seattle because Seattle is very wet.
Yeah,
So
probably to symbolize the alley that like Riley found her.
yeah. Well, I'm very excited to keep reading this on our next podcast. So sorry guys that we've been very MIA, but we're back and
Life happens.
life happened, yes. But we're back and we're gonna try our best to stick to a regular posting schedule. For the next two episodes, we'll probably still be on this. I'm assuming because the next one, if we read like another 50, that's up to 100. There's 178, so the last one we'll just kind of like power through and read the rest.
Yeah.
So and then we had lots of ideas and lots of things in store for our podcast this year. And
I forgot. I remember I was thinking about this. When I realized we were going to be recording, I was like, oh my god, or I wonder if we were going to do the whole we try and find someone on like Tinder or Hinge to like be
that
like,
would be
hey,
funny.
do you know about Twilight? And if you do you want to like give your opinions on a Twilight podcast?
Yeah, we could literally do that, but like Twilight hater.
Yeah.
Having a podcast with a sit down with a Twilight hater, and we'll just see their opinions and kind of we can tell them the lore and everything about that and see how that goes.
We'll we'll tell them why it sucks, but why it's great.
Yeah.
And that's what makes it like they're like so and then they'll be like wait so you hate it and you love it and it's like exactly.
Yeah, it's a complicated relationship. I
I
hate
mean,
things about it, but I love it as a whole.
yeah, I mean, Edward Cullen, he has a special place in my heart, but then I think about that moment that he swallowed Bella's tear and I'm like jail.
Oh my god, you know it'd be also so funny. I'll probably cut this out. But if we found like an English professor to like give their honest opinion about the writing in Twilight.
Oh my gosh, I wish I could remember the name of my freshman college professor, English professor, because her and I had like a good relationship that semester, and I would go to her and I wish I remembered her name, but I only had her that one semester, that one year, so it's like
You need to
I
look
don't even remember.
on rate my professor. I'm sure you'll
Yeah,
find her somewhere.
that's if she still even teaches. She may have retired.
Maybe. You never know. Well, okay, guys. This was a fun episode, and we're glad to be back, and we're just so excited for this year. Do we have any New Year's goals for our little podcast here?
I think that I think like algorithm, not an algorithm, but I feel like an engagement goal is to maybe we got up to 100 subscribers on YouTube. So maybe our engagement goal for this year could be 200 on YouTube, and we got 1,200 on TikTok. So
And
hopefully
we have 331 on Instagram. So maybe 500 by the end of the year, which I think is definitely doable. I think also like maybe just like a maybe towards the end of the year, something like that. Maybe put out some merch is something that I think that we've always talked about, and I think we have lots of ideas, and so it's just a matter of like we don't want to put out like a whole like line of merch, but just like little something for y'all to rep us a little bit. Maybe something I can wear to FTF or something that we can wear.
And maybe hopefully, because we didn't get to do it last time, if I am able to go to FTF, you guys will find out a secure answer by hopefully March, April, because that's when I would want to get my plane ticket if I do go.
Same.
Then we could film an episode at Forks. So that could be a goal. Yeah, but just because with different groups and time and just being busy, and then it's like, so we were like, hopefully we can try and figure out something. Yeah, but I need to make sure I get to FDF.
Yes. So super excited for this year and just excited to just be alive.
Yeah, be alive. Get through another freaking year of this pandemic. We're already 2 years in, and hopefully I really hope that by 2023 this COVID situation is done. Because I don't know, it's like I'm starting to forget how life was before, and that feeling is just like, I don't know, it doesn't sit well with me. I'm like, wait, what was it like before? I was like, oh my God.
Yeah.
But then again, if it wasn't for COVID, I wouldn't have met you, and I wouldn't have met everyone else, and we wouldn't even have this podcast. So kind of, thank you, COVID, but not thank you enough.
Quarantine, but yeah. Oh my goodness. Okay. Well, that is it, guys. Follow us on all of our social medias. Follow us on TikTok. We're kind of popping off there. I feel like every time I check it, we always have like a couple more notifications. So follow us on TikTok at The Bite Podcast RR. Follow us on YouTube.
The Bite with Raven and Bree. Make sure you watch our other episodes. Like, catch up on our other stuff.
Yeah. We have lots. We have so many more episodes. We have this is our 32nd episode? Yeah. So
32nd, 33rd.
Something like that. So we have literally a month of episodes for you guys to watch.
Yeah. We have a Midnight Sun series, and then Raven and I both have our vlogs from FTF last year, so you can watch those.
Mine's very chaotic. Ree's are a lot more put together than mine. But
no, I'm telling you, I love yours. Is so chaotic that makes it realistic, and it's like, oh, hey guys, I didn't record because honestly,
that's what it was.
Mine's literally just Snapchat videos I took.
But that's iconic too. Mine's all over the place, but yeah. So you guys go check that stuff out, and we'll see you guys next time.
Yeah.
Bye.